He had only one coat, but she was dying in the cold. What he did next made no sense until she grabbed his wrist and saw the mark. After 30 years of searching, she'd finally found him. But he had no idea who she really was, or that the coat he just gave away would unlock the secret of his entire life. This is the night everything changed. If you're listening right now, help me prove something wrong. My mother said I wouldn't even reach 100 subscribers, but I believe stories like this deserve to be heard. Help me show her that these tales matter. Please subscribe to Lax and Relax channel, and let's keep breathing life into stories that were never meant to stay silent. Now, let's continue. Michael McMiller's alarm didn't make a sound anymore. The button had broken off 2 years ago, but his body knew when 9 p.m. arrived. Time for work. He sat up on the mattress, no frame, just foam on hardwood, and rubbed his face. The studio apartment was 14 feet across. Kitchenette on one wall, bathroom behind a door that didn't close all the way, and a window that looked onto a brick wall 3 feet away. Rent was $800 a month. He made $1,200 cleaning office buildings at night. Michael pulled on his work shirt, navy blue with maintenance, stitched across the pocket, and the steel-toe boots he bought used. Then the coat. Heavy canvas, olive green, with a broken zipper he'd safety pinned shut. It was the warmest thing he owned. Breakfast was instant coffee, microwaved.
No cream. No sugar.
He'd run out last week. He locked the door behind him, 3 separate locks, because this neighborhood required it, and headed for the bus stop. The walk took 11 minutes. He knew because he'd timed it once, wondering if he could make the earlier bus. He couldn't. The bus arrived. Same driver as always, a woman named Denise who never looked up. Michael fed his pass through the scanner and found his usual seat in the back. 3 other passengers. A nurse still in scrubs. A man who might have been homeless or might have just had a long day. And a teenager with headphones who never got off at any stop Michael recognized. Nobody spoke. That was fine. Michael had learned a long time ago that invisible was easier than seen. The downtown towers came into view, glass and steel reflecting city lights. Michael got off at 5th and Morrison, walked 2 blocks east, and used his keycard to enter through the service entrance of the Whitmore building. 37 floors. He was responsible for 15 through 22. The freight elevator rattled as it climbed. Carlos was waiting on 17, the day janitor finishing his shift. Cold one tonight, Carlos said, pulling on his jacket. Yeah. Supposed to get worse. Storm coming in. Michael nodded. Carlos left. The floor was quiet now, just the hum of computers in sleep mode and the distant whoosh of the heating system. He started the same way he always did. Trash bins first. Rolling the cart down carpeted hallways, emptying waste baskets filled with coffee cups, crumpled paper, food wrappers from people who ate lunch at their desks. Then the break rooms, wiping down counters, loading the dishwasher, scrubbing the microwave that someone had exploded soup in. Bathrooms next. Toilets, sinks, mirrors, floors. Refill soap dispensers, paper towels, toilet paper. Finally, the floors themselves. Vacuum the carpeted areas, mop the tile. 4 hours per floor. 8 floors per night. Midnight to 8 a.m., 5 days a week. By 2 a.m., Michael had finished floor 19 and was starting on 20. Conference room first. Long table, 18 chairs. Whiteboard someone had forgotten to erase. Notes from a meeting about quarterly projections. Michael wiped it clean. He caught his reflection in the window. Thin face, dark hair that needed cutting, eyes that looked older than 35. He turned away. There was a photograph on one of the desks nearby. A family. Dad, Mom, 2 kids, all smiling at a beach somewhere. Michael stopped pushing the vacuum.
He didn't know what that felt like.
A family vacation. A mom who took pictures. A dad who held you on his shoulders. His first memory was a shelter. Bright fluorescent lights and a woman with a clipboard asking him his name. He didn't know. Asking him where his parents were.
He didn't know that either.
They'd found him wandering alone near a bus station, 5 years old, with no shoes and a t-shirt 2 sizes too big. No missing person reports matched his description. No one came looking for him. He became Michael McMiller because a social worker had to write something on the forms. Michael because it was common. McMiller because she just had a client with that last name and it was still in her head. Foster homes after that. 7 different ones before he aged out at 18.
Some were fine.
Some weren't. None of them were home. The vacuum hummed back to life as Michael finished the room. He told himself it didn't matter. Who his parents were, why they left him, where he came from, those were questions for people who had the luxury of answers. He had work. He had rent. He had survival. That was enough. It had to be. By 7 a.m., Michael had finished his rounds. He returned the cart to the supply closet, punched out, and took the service elevator back down. The cold hit him the moment he stepped outside. It wasn't regular winter cold. This was the kind that seized your lungs, that turned breath into visible clouds, that made your bones ache. The weather report had been right. The storm was here. Michael pulled his coat tighter, the one with the broken zipper and the safety pin, and started walking toward the bus stop. That's when he saw her. An old woman, hunched against the building, wearing a thin sweater and slacks.
No coat. No hat.
Just shivering so hard her whole body shook. Michael slowed, then stopped. She looked up. Her eyes met his. And in that moment, something shifted, something neither of them could have predicted.
But he didn't know that yet.
All he knew was that she was dying in the cold. And he had only one coat. Michael had walked past homeless people before. Everyone did. You couldn't live in the city without learning to look away. But this was different. This woman wasn't asking for money, wasn't holding a sign. She was just sitting there against the concrete, eyes half closed, lips turning blue. She was dying. Michael looked at the bus stop 2 blocks down, then back at her. His coat was the only thing between him and that same cold. He needed it for the walk home, for tomorrow, for every day after. But she needed it more. He crossed the sidewalk.
Mom.
His voice came out rough. Ma'am, you can't stay out here. Her eyes opened. They were sharp, focused, not what he expected. She tried to speak, but her teeth were chattering too hard. Michael crouched down. When's the last time you ate something warm? She shook her head slightly. He made a decision he'd probably regret. Michael unzipped, unpinned, his coat, and pulled it off. The cold knifed through his work shirt immediately. He draped the canvas over her shoulders.
Here.
Take this. No, her voice cracked. You'll freeze. I'll be fine. Bus is right there. He helped her stand. She was lighter than he expected, fragile. As he pulled her arm through the sleeve, his own sleeve rode up. Her hand locked around his wrist. Michael looked down. Her grip was surprisingly strong, her eyes fixed on something. He followed her gaze. The birthmark, crescent-shaped, about the size of a dime, just below his left wrist. He'd had it his whole life. Never thought much about it. But she was staring at it like she'd seen a ghost. Where? She stopped, swallowed. Where did you get that mark? I was born with it. Why? She didn't answer, just kept staring. Her hand trembled against his skin. Ma'am, you need to get inside. There's a diner 2 blocks up. Let me.
Take me there, she said. Please.
I'll buy you breakfast. Coffee. Whatever you want. Michael hesitated. He had exactly $6 in his wallet. Enough for the bus and maybe 1 meal today. But something in her voice made him nod. They walked slowly. She leaned on him, still wearing his coat. The diner's lights were fluorescent and too bright. Only 3 other people inside, a trucker, a waitress, and a cook visible through the kitchen window. The waitress pointed them to a booth. Michael helped the woman slide in, then sat across from her. She was still looking at his wrist. I'm Margaret, she said finally. Margaret Ashford. Michael McMiller. How old are you, Michael? Odd question. 35. Something flickered across her face. And that mark, you've always had it?
Yeah.
Since I can remember, anyway. Look, are you okay? Should I call someone? Margaret reached into her purse with shaking hands. She pulled out her phone, swiped through photos, then turned the screen toward him. Michael looked. It was a little boy, maybe 3 years old, smiling, holding a stuffed rabbit, and on his left wrist was a crescent-shaped birthmark, identical to Michael's. That, Margaret whispered, was my grandson. He was taken from us 30 years ago. The diner disappeared. The fluorescent lights, the trucker's coffee cup, the waitress calling out an order. All of it faded into white noise. Michael couldn't breathe. What are you saying? Margaret looked up at him. Her eyes were wet. I'm saying I've been searching for him for 3 decades. And I think I just found him. Michael stared at the photo, then at Margaret, then back at the photo. I'm not. The words wouldn't form properly. I know this sounds impossible, Margaret said. Her voice was steadier now, warming up. But that mark, it's identical. And your age. The timing fits exactly. The waitress appeared. What can I get you folks? Coffee, Margaret said. 2. And whatever he wants to eat. I'm not hungry. You need to eat something. Michael shook his head. His mind was racing, trying to find solid ground. You said he was taken. What does that mean? Margaret's hands wrapped around her coffee cup even though it was still empty. My daughter and her husband were murdered. Home invasion. Jonathan, my grandson, was sleeping in his bedroom. When the police arrived, he was gone. Just gone. How old was he? 3 years and 4 months. Michael did the math.
He'd been found at 5.
A year and a half later. They never found him?
No.
The word came out like broken glass. I hired private investigators, offered rewards, used every connection I had. I was a judge. I knew people had resources. It didn't matter. He vanished. The waitress returned with coffee. Margaret wrapped both hands around the cup like it was the only thing keeping her anchored. Michael lifted his wrist, looked at the mark again. Lots of people have birthmarks. Not like that. Crescent-shaped, that exact size, that exact location. She pulled out her phone again, swiped to another photo. This is clearer. Look. He looked. The resemblance was exact. Not similar.
Exact.
His coffee sat untouched. You said you were a judge. Retired now. Supreme Court of Appeals. 26 years. That explained the way she carried herself. Even freezing on a sidewalk, even wearing his broken zippered coat, there was something about her.
Authority. Wait.
Why were you out there? Michael asked. On the street like that. Margaret hesitated. I couldn't sleep. I've been having dreams lately about Jonathan. About finding him. So I went walking. Stupid in this weather. I went further than I meant to. Got turned around. By the time I realized how cold it was, she trailed off. Then you appeared. That's quite a coincidence. I don't believe in coincidences anymore. I've spent 30 years following leads that went nowhere. Dead ends and false hopes and children who weren't him. I stopped believing in luck a long time ago. She looked directly at him. But I believe in this. Michael's throat felt tight. I was found near a bus station.
Nos chus.
No memory of anything before that. They figured I was abandoned. Or kidnapped. Moved around. Maybe whoever took you panicked, left you somewhere public. That's a lot of maybes. I know. Margaret's voice softened. Michael, I'm not trying to upend your life. But I need to know. We could do a DNA test. Simple cheek swab. 2 weeks for results. 2 weeks. 14 days to find out if everything he thought he knew about himself was wrong. And if it's not a match? Michael asked. Then I apologize for the confusion. And I thank you for saving my life tonight. And if it is? Margaret's eyes filled. Then I found my grandson. And you found your family. Family. The word landed in his chest like a stone. He'd given up on that word at 7 years old, in his 3rd foster home, when he realized no one was coming for him. I don't know, he said. Take time to think about it. Here. Margaret pulled out a business card, wrote something on the back. That's my personal number.
Call me when you're ready.
Or, if you decide you're not. Michael took the card. Margaret Ashford. Law offices she no longer worked at, probably. The kind of card people kept just because it said who they were. The coat, he said suddenly. You should keep it. I can.
No.
Margaret started to shrug it off. You need this. Keep it for now. You have further to go than I do. She hesitated, then nodded. I'll have it cleaned. Return it to you. It's just a coat. It's not. Her voice cracked. It's the reason we're sitting here. It's the reason I saw your wrist. It's the reason. She stopped. Nothing in my life has been just anything since the night they were killed. Michael understood that. His whole life had been shaped by one night he couldn't remember. The night someone left him at a bus station. The night he became nobody. Maybe the night he was taken from someone who never stopped looking. I'll think about it, he said finally.
The test.
That's all I ask. They sat in silence for a moment. The diner hummed around them. Normal people having normal mornings. Toast and eggs and small talk. Michael's life had stopped being normal the moment she grabbed his wrist. He just didn't know yet how much was about to change. Michael didn't take the bus home. He walked. 43 blocks in the freezing cold with nothing but his work shirt. By the time he reached his apartment, his fingers were numb and his face felt like ice. He didn't notice. All he could see was that photograph. The little boy with his birthmark. The same crescent moon on the same wrist in the same exact spot. Inside, Michael sat on the edge of his mattress and stared at his left wrist. He'd never thought much about it. Just something he was born with. Some kids had freckles. Some had moles. He had a crescent-shaped mark. But what if it meant something? He pulled out Margaret's card. The paper was expensive, heavy stock. Her name in raised lettering. On the back, her number written in neat script. Michael set it on the floor, where he could see it. Then he lay back and tried to sleep. He couldn't. Every time he closed his eyes, he saw that little boy. Saw Margaret's face when she grabbed his wrist. Heard her voice. I've been searching for him for 3 decades. 30 years. She'd been looking for 30 years. And he'd been nobody for 30 years. The math lined up too perfectly. He was 35 now. Found at 5. That was 30 years ago. The same year Jonathan disappeared. Michael sat up. His heart was pounding. What if it was true? What if he had parents who loved him? A grandmother who never stopped searching? A whole life that was stolen? But what if it wasn't? What if this was just another dead end, another disappointment, another reminder that he came from nowhere and belonged to no one? He'd spent his whole life building walls against hope. Hope was dangerous. Hope made you vulnerable. Hope set you up to be destroyed. By 4 p.m., Michael gave up on sleep. He made instant coffee and sat by the window, watching the brick wall 3 feet away. His phone was on the floor next to Margaret's card. He picked it up, put it down, picked it up again. Finally, he dialed. She answered on the second ring. Michael. How did you know it was me? I've been waiting. Her voice was careful, controlled, like she was afraid of scaring him off. Have you decided? I need to know something first. If the test comes back positive, if I'm him, what happens then? Margaret was quiet for a moment. Then we figure out together. I'm not expecting you to call me grandmother and move into my house. I'm not expecting anything except the truth. And if I'm not him, then you gave me hope for a few days. That's more than I've had in a long time. Michael looked at his wrist again. This mark. Did Jonathan get it from his mother or father? His mother. My daughter, Sarah. She had the same one. Exact same place. Something twisted in Michael's chest. A daughter. He might have had a mother named Sarah who had this same mark, who passed it to him, who died when he was 3. Okay, he heard himself say. I'll do the test. Margaret's breath caught. You will.
Yeah, but I need you to understand something.
I've spent 35 years being Michael McMiller. That's who I am. A DNA test doesn't change that overnight.
I know.
I understand. And if it's positive, I'm not promising anything. I'm not promising I'll be what you're looking for. You already are, Margaret said softly. You gave a freezing stranger your only coat. That's exactly who I'd want my grandson to be. Michael's throat felt tight. When do we do this? I'll set it up. There's a lab that can see us tomorrow if you're free.
It's just a cheek swab.
Takes 2 minutes. Tomorrow's fine. I work nights. I'll text you the address. 2 o'clock. Okay. Another pause. Then Margaret said, Michael?
Thank you.
For giving me this chance. He wanted to say something meaningful, something that matched the weight of the moment. But all that came out was, see you tomorrow. He hung up. The apartment felt smaller somehow, like the walls were closing in. Michael grabbed his jacket, the thin one he wore under his coat, and left. He walked without direction. Past the bodega on the corner, past the laundromat, past the bus stop where he caught the 947 every night. The city moved around him. People with places to be. People who knew where they came from. Michael stopped at a park bench and sat down. For 30 years, he'd been the boy no one wanted. The kid who came from nowhere. He'd made peace with that. Built a life around that truth. But what if it was a lie? What if someone did want him? What if someone had been searching all this time? What if he wasn't abandoned? What if he was stolen? The difference between those two words was everything. Michael looked at his wrist one more time. The crescent moon that had always been there. Meaningless. Or maybe the most meaningful thing about him. Tomorrow, he'd find out which. The lab was in a medical building downtown. Glass doors, marble floors, the kind of place Michael never had reason to enter. Margaret was waiting in the lobby. She'd returned his coat, cleaned and folded, and was wearing a long wool coat that probably cost more than his monthly rent. Thank you for coming, she said. Michael nodded. Words felt too heavy. They took the elevator to the 3rd floor in silence. A receptionist smiled at them, checked Margaret's name on a list, and handed them clipboards. Just some basic information. The technician will be with you shortly. Michael stared at the forms.
Name.
Date of birth. Address. Simple questions with complicated answers. Under date of birth, he wrote what was on all his documents, June 15th. But it wasn't real. Just a date the social worker had picked because he'd looked about 5 years old when they found him. Everything about him was a guess. The technician called them back. Young guy, professional smile. This'll be quick. Just a cheek swab from each of you. It was quick. Cotton swab rubbed inside his cheek. 10 seconds.
Done.
Results take 10 to 14 days. We'll call you both. That was it. The moment that might change everything took less than a minute. Outside, Margaret turned to him. Would you like to get lunch? Or I understand if you'd rather. Lunch is fine. They found a cafe 2 blocks away. Quiet, not too crowded. Michael ordered coffee. Margaret ordered soup she didn't touch. Tell me about yourself, she said. Who is Michael McMiller? He almost laughed. There's not much to tell. I doubt that. Michael shrugged. I work. I pay rent. That's about it. No friends?
No hobbies.
I read sometimes. Library books. I used to play basketball at the park, but... He trailed off. That was years ago, before his knees started acting up. Before he worked so many hours that sleep mattered more than anything else. Margaret leaned forward slightly. What do you read? Anything. History mostly. Biographies. Of who? People who came from nothing. Built something anyway. He met her eyes. I guess I liked the idea that where you start doesn't determine where you end up. Something shifted in Margaret's expression. Pride, maybe. Or sadness. Tell me about Jonathan, Michael said. What was he like? Margaret's hands tightened around her cup.
Happy.
He laughed at everything. His father would make these terrible jokes, and Jonathan would just light up. He loved that stuffed rabbit. Carried it everywhere. Peter Rabbit, he called it. Do you remember him at all? Any specific memories? Everything. His first steps. His first word.
Manga.
He said it at 10 months. Her voice cracked. Sarah was so proud.
Sarah.
His mother. Your mother, Margaret said firmly. If you're Jonathan, then she was your mother. And she loved you more than anything in this world. Michael looked down. What happened that night? You said they were murdered. Margaret went still. Are you sure you want to know? I need to. She took a breath. Sarah and David, your father, were home. You were asleep in your room. Someone broke in. The police think it was a robbery gone wrong. They were killed in the living room. Multiple stab wounds. By the time neighbors called 911, it was too late. Michael felt sick. When police arrived, your bedroom door was open. Your bed was empty. No signs of struggle. You were just gone. Like someone had come specifically for you. Did they ever find suspects? No one who fit. The case went cold within a year. Margaret's voice hardened. I tried to keep it alive. I pushed investigators, hired private detectives, followed every lead. Nothing. It was like you disappeared into thin air. And you never stopped looking. Never. I couldn't. Every birthday, every Christmas, every time I saw a boy around your age, I wondered, is that him? Did he survive? Is he okay? She looked directly at Michael. I needed to know you were alive. Even if I never found you, I needed to believe you were out there somewhere. The weight of that hit him. 30 years of searching. 30 years of hope and heartbreak. What about the rest of your family? Michael asked. There isn't anyone else. Sarah was my only child. My husband died 8 years ago. It's just me now. Just her. Alone in a big house with photos of people who were gone. Spending 30 years chasing ghosts. I'm sorry, Michael said. Don't be. You're here now. That's what matters. You don't even know if I'm him yet. I know. Margaret's voice was certain. I looked into your eyes in that diner, and I knew. The test is just confirmation. Michael wanted to believe her. Wanted to believe that this broken thing inside him, the part that always wondered where he came from, could finally be answered. But he'd learned not to trust wanting things. What if I am Jonathan? He asked quietly. What happens then? Do I become someone else? Do I stop being Michael?
No.
You'll always be Michael. That's who you've become. But you'll also know who you were, where you came from. You'll have a history. A story that didn't start at a bus station. A story. Michael had spent his whole life without one. Just fragments and guesses, and a name that meant nothing. Maybe he was about to get one. Or maybe this was just another door that would slam shut. 2 weeks, he said. 2 weeks. They finished their coffee in silence. When they parted outside the cafe, Margaret hugged him. Quick, uncertain. Like she wasn't sure if she had the right. Michael hugged her back. Just in case. 10 to 14 days. Michael had never realized how long 2 weeks could be. The first 3 days were the worst. He'd wake up at 9 p.m. for work and immediately check his phone. Nothing. He'd scrub floors and empty trash bins with the phone in his pocket, feeling its weight, imagining it ringing. It never did. By day 5, he started researching. Late at night, after his shift, he'd go to the library and use their computers. He searched for Sarah and David Morrison. Found old news articles about the murders. The headlines were brutal. Young couple slain in home invasion. Toddler missing after parents killed. Police search for 3-year-old Jonathan Morrison. There were photos. Sarah had dark hair and a quiet smile. David wore glasses and looked kind. In one picture, they were holding a baby. Him, maybe. Or the son they'd lost. Michael stared at Sarah's face, searching for resemblance. Did he have her eyes? Her nose? He couldn't tell. She was a stranger. But she might be his mother. He found Margaret's name in later articles. Retired judge offers reward for missing grandson. The reward had started at $50,000. By year 5, it was $200,000. By year 10, $500,000. She'd meant what she said. She never stopped looking. On day 7, Margaret called. I just wanted to check on you, she said. See how you're holding up.
Fine.
You're not. Neither am I.
Her voice was raw.
I can't sleep. Can't eat. I keep thinking about that phone call. What they'll say.
Yeah. I'm sorry.
I shouldn't have called. I just needed to hear your voice. Something in Michael's chest loosened. It's okay. I get it. They talked for 20 minutes. About nothing really. The weather. The city. Small things that didn't matter. But it helped. After that, they talked every few days. Brief calls. Margaret would ask about work. Michael would ask if she'd heard anything. Neither of them had. By day 10, Michael stopped sleeping well. He'd lie on his mattress and imagine scenarios. The test comes back positive. He's Jonathan Morrison. He has a grandmother, a history, a family name. But what does he do with that? Move into her house? Become someone different? He was 35 years old. Too old to become somebody's grandson. Or the test comes back negative. He's not Jonathan. Just Michael McMiller, janitor. Nobody. Margaret goes back to searching. He goes back to his studio apartment and his broken alarm clock and his one coat. Nothing changes except now he knows what it feels like to hope. And that might be worse than never hoping at all. On day 12, Michael cleaned the same conference room 3 times. He couldn't focus. His hands shook when he poured cleaning solution. Carlos noticed when their shifts overlapped. You okay, man? You look terrible. Didn't sleep well. You need to take a day. Rest. Michael shook his head. He couldn't rest. Couldn't sit still. Movement was the only thing keeping him from falling apart. On day 13, Margaret called again. Tomorrow, she said. They said results come tomorrow. Okay. Michael, I want you to know, whatever happens, I'm grateful. For your kindness that night. For giving me these 2 weeks of hope. That matters.
Don't, Michael said.
Don't talk like it's over. I'm just saying. We'll know tomorrow. Let's wait until then. That night, Michael didn't go to work. He called in sick for the first time in 3 years. Instead, he sat by the window and watched the brick wall. He thought about Sarah Morrison, about a mother he might have had, about being carried out of a house while his parents lay dead in the next room, about 5-year-old him, wandering alone at a bus station with no memory of any of it. Did he want to remember? Did he want to know what he'd lost? Maybe ignorance had been easier. His phone was on the floor beside him, silent. At 9:47 a.m., the exact time his bus usually left, it rang. Michael stared at the screen. Margaret's name. His hand reached for it. Stopped. Reached again. He answered. Michael. Margaret's voice was shaking. The lab just called. He couldn't breathe. And silence. Long enough that Michael thought the line had cut out. Then, it's a match. You're him. You're Jonathan. The phone slipped from his hand. Everything he thought he knew, every wall he'd built, every truth he'd accepted, shattered. He wasn't nobody. He never had been. Someone had been looking for him his entire life. And now she'd found him. Michael picked up the phone with trembling hands. Are you sure? 99.9% certainty. It's you, Jonathan. It's really you. His voice broke. I don't know what to say. Say you'll let me see you. Today. Please. Michael looked around his studio apartment. At the mattress on the floor. At the broken alarm clock. At the life he'd built from nothing. It was still his life. But now it had a beginning. Yeah, he whispered. Come over. Margaret arrived within the hour. Michael heard her footsteps in the hallway, quick, urgent, and then the knock. When he opened the door, they just stared at each other. She looked older than she had 2 weeks ago. Or maybe he was just seeing her differently now. This wasn't a stranger. This was his grandmother. Jonathan, she whispered. Michael, he said automatically. Then softer. I'm still Michael.
I know. I'm sorry.
He stepped aside. She entered the studio apartment, and he watched her take it in. The mattress on the floor. The hot plate. The single window facing brick. Everything he owned fit in 14 feet. Margaret's face crumpled. Don't, Michael said. Don't do that. You've been living like this her voice broke, while I had 6 empty bedrooms and more money than I could ever spend. You didn't know. I should have found you sooner. I should have. Stop. Michael's voice came out harder than he meant. You can't do that. You can't come in here and make this about your guilt. Margaret went still, then nodded. You're right.
I'm sorry.
They sat on opposite ends of the mattress, the only place to sit. Silence stretched between them. Two strangers who shared DNA. Two people connected by a tragedy neither remembered the same way. Finally, Margaret spoke. What do you want to know? Everything. Michael's hands clenched. I want to know who I was before. Who they were. Why I can't remember any of it. Margaret pulled out her phone. Opened photos. This was your mother on her wedding day. Sarah Morrison in a white dress, laughing.
Alive.
This is your father holding you the day you were born. David's face filled with wonder, cradling a tiny infant. This is you on your 3rd birthday. 2 months before. Before they died. Before he was taken. Before everything ended. Michael stared at the little boy blowing out candles. He looked happy.
Loved.
Safe. He felt nothing.
No recognition.
No memory. Just absence. Why can't I remember them? His voice cracked. Why don't I remember anything? Trauma, Margaret said quietly. The doctors said it was likely trauma. At that age, the brain protects itself. You witness something, or experience something, so terrible that your mind buried it. I want it back. Michael's throat burned. I want to remember them. I want to remember being loved. You were loved. So much. Sarah used to sing to you every night. David would read you the same book over and over because you insisted. You were the center of their world. But I don't remember. Tears were sliding down his face now. He didn't try to stop them. I spent 30 years thinking I was abandoned. Thinking I wasn't wanted. And all that time, you were wanted. You were desperately wanted. Then where were you? The words exploded out of him. Where were you when I was in foster homes? When I was bouncing between families who didn't give a damn? When I was sleeping in shelters and eating from food banks? Where? I was looking. Margaret's voice shook. Every single day I was looking. I hired investigators. I followed every lead. Every boy around your age, every sighting, every possibility. I chased them all. None of them were you. How could you not find me? I was right here, in this city. You weren't using your name. They must have changed it. Or you couldn't remember it. By the time you entered the system, you were already Michael McMiller. I was searching for Jonathan Morrison, the boy who was taken. Margaret's face was wet too. I failed you. I know that. I'll live with that for the rest of my life. But I never stopped trying. Michael buried his face in his hands. 30 years. Both of them lost for 30 years. I'm angry, he said into his palms. I'm so angry and I don't even know who to be angry at. Be angry at me. I can take it. That's not fair either. Nothing about this is fair. They sat in silence again. Different this time. Heavier. Do you have pictures of them? Michael asked finally. Physical ones? Margaret nodded. Albums.
Boxes of them.
I kept everything. Their clothes, your toys, your baby blanket. I couldn't let go. I want to see it all. I want to know them. I'll show you everything. Michael wiped his face. I need you to understand something. I'm not the 3-year-old you lost. I'm not Jonathan anymore.
I'm Michael.
35 years old. I've lived a whole life without you. I know. And I don't know how to be a grandson. I don't know how to be family. I've never had that. We'll figure it out. Margaret's hand hovered near his, then settled gently on the mattress between them. We don't have to rush. We have time now.
Time.
Something they'd both lost so much of. Did my parents have a grave? Michael asked.
Yes.
I visit every week. I want to go there. I want to meet them, even if it's 30 years too late. Margaret's breath hitched. I'll take you, whenever you're ready. Tomorrow.
Tomorrow, she agreed.
Michael looked at his wrist. The crescent-shaped mark that had always been there. Meaningless his entire life. Now the key that unlocked everything. Does it get easier? He asked, knowing the truth. I don't know yet, Margaret said honestly. Ask me again in a year.
A year.
The idea of having a year with someone, of having someone to ask things a year from now, felt impossible. But then again, 2 weeks ago, having a grandmother felt impossible too. Michael looked at her. Really looked. At the woman who'd spent 30 years searching. Who'd never given up. Who'd recognized him from a birthmark on a frozen sidewalk.
Thank you, he said.
For what? For finding me. Margaret's face broke open. She reached for him, hesitant, asking permission. Michael leaned into her arms. And for the first time in 35 years, he let himself be held by family. Margaret's house was everything Michael's apartment wasn't.
Space. Light.
Warmth. Rooms that had purposes. A kitchen with actual counter space. Stairs that led to a second floor. It felt like a museum. Beautiful and untouchable. This was Sarah's room, Margaret said, opening a door at the end of the hall. Michael stepped inside. The walls were pale yellow. Posters from the 90s, bands he didn't recognize. A bookshelf filled with novels. And on the dresser, photographs. Sarah at graduation. Sarah on her wedding day. Sarah holding a newborn him, with a smile that could light up the world. She looks happy, Michael said.
She was.
Especially after you were born. Margaret picked up a frame. This was her favorite photo of you too. Sarah lying in grass, toddler Jonathan on her chest, both laughing at something off camera. The crescent birthmark visible on his tiny wrist. Michael took the frame, stared at it. This woman was his mother. He came from her. She'd carried him, raised him, loved him. And he didn't remember her face. Can I keep this? He asked. It's yours. Everything here is yours. They went downstairs to the living room. Margaret brought out albums.
Dozens of them.
Jonathan's first steps. First word. First Christmas. A whole life documented in photographs and videos. Margaret played one on her phone, shaky footage of toddler Jonathan chasing a dog around the backyard, laughing hysterically. That was your father filming, Margaret said. That laugh, that's all David. You got that from him. Michael watched the video 3 times. Searching for himself in that little boy. Finding nothing but absence. I need to see where they're buried, he said finally. The cemetery was 20 minutes outside the city. Rolling hills, old trees, rows of headstones stretching in every direction. Margaret led him to a spot under an oak tree. 2 graves. Side by side. Sarah Morrison. Beloved daughter and mother. 1968 to 1994. David Morrison. Loving husband and father. 1967 to 1994. Michael stood there, silent. The wind moved through the branches above. These people were his parents. They'd held him, fed him,
sang to him,
protected him until they couldn't anymore. And someone had taken that away. From them. From him. From Margaret. I'm sorry, he whispered. Not sure if he was talking to them or to Margaret or to the little boy who'd lost them. I'm sorry I don't remember you. Margaret stood beside him, close but not touching. They would have been so proud of you, she said quietly.
You survived.
You built a life from nothing. You're kind and decent and good. That's what they would have wanted for you. I gave away a coat, Michael said, voice breaking. That's all I did. You gave away your only coat to a stranger. That's who they raised. Even if you don't remember them, they're still in you. Michael knelt down, touched the cold stone. I wish I'd known them. So, do I. They stayed until the sun started setting. Michael didn't know what else to say, so he just sat there, being present, being their son, even 30 years too late. Back at Margaret's house, she showed him one more thing. His old bedroom. Exactly as it had been. Blue walls. Toy box in the corner. Small bed with a quilt his mother had made. And on the shelf, a stuffed rabbit.
Peter Rabbit.
Michael picked it up. The fur was worn, one ear slightly torn. He held it and waited to feel something. Some spark of memory. Nothing came. But maybe that was okay. Maybe he didn't need to remember to move forward. I'm not ready to stay here, he said. Not yet. I understand. But I'd like to visit. Get to know you. Learn about them. I'd like that too. Margaret walked him to the door. Before he left, she handed him a key. For when you're ready, she said. Michael took it, heavy and solid in his palm. He had a key to somewhere, to someone's home, to family. It didn't fix 30 years of loss, didn't erase the foster homes or the loneliness or the not knowing, but it was a start. That night, Michael sat in his studio apartment, the photograph of Sarah and Jonathan on his nightstand, Peter Rabbit on the pillow, Margaret's key on the table. His phone buzzed. A text from Margaret. Thank you for today, for giving me my grandson back. Sleep well, Jonathan. He typed back, Good night, Grandma. Michael. He stared at the words for a long moment, then hit send. Outside, the city hummed. The same brick wall faced his window. The same broken alarm clock sat silent. But everything was different. Because he knew now. He knew where he came from.
Who he'd been.
Who'd loved him. And somewhere out there, his grandmother was sleeping in a house that wasn't empty anymore. Michael lay back on his mattress, holding the stuffed rabbit, looking at his mother smile. For the first time in 35 years, he was a nobody. He was Jonathan Morrison. He was Michael McMiller. He was found. One question before you go. What if that coat changed nothing? What if she was just a stranger, and he stayed nobody? Would his kindness still matter? Tell me in the comments. Do